Hello, you are welcome to this course on contemporary Christian-Muslim relations. We have been looking at some theological factors that impact, influence, inform Christian-Muslim relations. Now we want to look at some historical and contemporary issues that also do impact and inform Christian-Muslim relations in the contemporary world. So, with this lecture, we are going to look at how Muslims have attempted over the centuries to look at Christianity and understood Christianity and engage with Christianity and Christians. In the next lecture, we'll look at how Christians have done the same also. And then we will look at the contemporary situation, what has changed, what has moved on, and what is still the same. And then we'll close the series with what are the contemporary phases of Islam, so that for Christians to be able to respond intelligently and meaningfully, we have to understand the diversity in Islam. So we'll look at that as the last concluding part of this series. So for this one, we'll look at the Muslim approaches to Christianity and historical note. As we've said in the outset of this series, the first encounter between Christians and Muslims was the encounter between the first Muslim refugees who fled to Abyssinia in Ethiopia in 615. But before that, the Prophet of Islam had encountered Christians himself personally. And the Prophet's encounters with Christians becomes a formative part of what Muslim attitudes and understanding of Christians and Christianity has been also. So the first time the Prophet encounters a Christian is mentioned in the life of the Prophet when he encountered a Christian monk called Bahira. When the Prophet was on the journey to Syria with his uncle on a trading party, and they encountered this Christian monk who provided them with hospitality. And upon seeing the Prophet of Islam, who was about 12, 15 years old at the time, he said to the uncle of Muhammad at the time, the uncle was called Abu Talib. He told Abu Talib that this your nephew, Muhammad, is destined to become a prophet because I have seen marks of prophethood on his shoulders. So for the first time, even to Muhammad and to the family, the idea of Muhammad going to become a prophet was first uttered by a Christian monk. Now, this story we have no way of verifying historically, but it is a very strong tradition in Islam. The second encounter between the Christian and the Prophet of Islam is a Christian monk again called Waraka bin Nawfal. Waraka was a cousin of the Prophet's first wife, Khadija. And when the Prophet got his first revelation, his first encounter, his first experience, the Prophet himself was confused, he was unsettled, he was unsure about what was happening. He came home to his wife, Khadija, and was distressed. And the wife advised him to go and see Waraka, who was her cousin, and who happened to be a Christian monk, and to explain what happened to him, to see what Waraka made of it. So the Prophet of Islam went to meet Waraka, told him what happened, and Waraka told the Prophet of Islam that the experience that he had was a visit from the divine, and that God was appointing him a prophet to his own people. So first we had Bahira, and second we had Waraka, both Christian monks prophesying to the Prophet of Islam that he was going to become a prophet to his own people. These were very positive encounters. And then we have the third encounter, which was when the Prophet advised his followers who were being persecuted in Mecca to seek asylum in Ethiopia, which was a Christian area. because the prophet at this time felt that what he was preaching, the Christians were sympathetic to it. And therefore, he asked his followers to seek asylum in Abyssinia, in Ethiopia, which did happen. They were well received, they were treated kindly, they were protected, and they spent a number of years before they returned to Mecca and to Medina to join the prophet. So again, the encounter with Ethiopian Christianity was very positive. We also know that the prophet had a slave girl called Mary as a concubine, and Mary, scholars have speculated, could have been an Egyptian Coptic girl, slave girl, and scholars have speculated as to what extent Mary would have had an influence on the prophet's own early views of Christianity. And then there was this significant meeting that the prophet of Islam had with bishops from Najran in southern Yemen, who came at the time to meet with the prophet of Islam to have some of the discussions on what to do in terms of Christian-Muslim understanding. There was a disagreement on the person of Jesus. The bishops were of the view that Jesus was divine, he was the Son of God. The prophet disagreed with them and told them that Jesus was a prophet. But again, the meeting was a very cordial one. It ended on a positive note, to the extent that when the Christian party wanted to say their prayers and wanted to do so in the open, the prophet offered them his own mosque, his own prayer area, space for them to say their Christian prayers. And the Christians went into the prophet's mosque and said their prayers. This was again very significant, that's a kind of gesture from the prophet of Islam to a Christian party, opening his mosque for them to say their prayers in it. These are all very positive encounters that the prophet of Islam had with Christians. And that is part of the formation that has become part of the traditions of Islam that informs how Muslims should engage with Christians and Christianity.